Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Welcome to our latest episode. I am joined by Yifan Zhang, who is the managing director of AI2 Incubator, which came out of the Allen Institute for AI, and recently founded AI House, located on Seattle's waterfront, on Pier 70 to be specific, the former home of Real World in Seattle way back in the day. And AI House is a space for AI experts, entrepreneurs, community leaders, and builders who are creating the next era of AI in Seattle. And Yifan founded AI House earlier this year and opened its doors. Prior to this venture, Yifan was a founder and CEO of Loftium, which was acquired by Fly Homes, and of Gympack, a top 5 fitness app that pays you to work out. And we talk a bit about both of those companies, in addition to her latest venture, which is a partnership with the Office of Economic Development here in the city, with some investment from the Washington State Department of Commerce, to create this house, this hub, to support those in the AI space in Seattle. Yifan was named in Entrepreneur's list of 50 most daring entrepreneurs and on the Forbes list of 30 under 30. And is a significant leader in the tech space here in our city. And we talk about tech and the startup scene and AI specifically, and all that she's hoping to create and germinate down on Seattle's waterfront at this new hub for AI, the AI House. Hope you enjoy my conversation with the managing director of AI2 Incubator and the founder of AI House, Yifan Zhang. So if you're ready, we're ready.
Perfect.
And we'll
Let's
get rolling.
do it.
Well, thank you for making time to come on Seattle City Makers and to have us in this incredible space. Congratulations on making this happen and bringing it to our city.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and being here.
Yeah, I missed you opened in March, right? You had a big event with the mayor
at the
and
end
others.
of March.
Yeah, I think I was out of town, so this is my first time in. And,
we had a really amazing day. We had the mayor coming in the morning. We had Vinod Khosla come and spend private time, also do a fireside chat here with our founders and all the Seattle AI founders that we invited in. Then we had the big blow-up party at the end that ended with lightning and tornadoes, and that didn't happen. That day.
So for those who aren't familiar with AI House, tell us what happens here and the origin story around how this came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I joined AI2 Incubator as a managing director, I have always been a founder. So started a mobile fitness app that became one of the top mobile fitness apps. Then started an affordable housing startup called Loftium that was acquired by Fly Homes. So I got to know the city, including Office of Economic Development, Mayor Harrell, through some of the downtown reactivation work that we did post-COVID.
Right, that's where we first met, I think, is sitting at that table together.
Exactly.
And you were from the Bay Area previously, is that right?
So I'm from all over. I grew up in China, or I guess born in China, grew up in Indiana, then went to Harvard undergrad, then SF for my first startup, here for my second startup. So all over. Yeah. But I think I resonate a lot with the West Coast. Yeah. So AI House basically met a bunch of folks from the city. When I joined AI2 Incubator, I got brought into some of the existing conversations around funding that had been passed by the state of Washington to start some kind of AI initiative. They had some concepts around workforce development, but I really helped to shape the concept of AI House into more of a startup space, co-working for startups, event space for startup-oriented AI events. As well as we now open up the space to a list of experts. So we have 50 AI experts that have badge access to this space. And that really helps to amplify what we do at the incubator, right? Our experts are hosting events here, creating events, creating smaller groups around like computer vision or health tech or female founders that then expands what
so there's sort of like ourselves. Honorary members and contributors come and go as they please and create content and other programming that others benefit from here.
Exactly. Yep. It's a little bit of self-serve. And honestly, we're figuring out as we go, right? Yeah. We're just getting really smart people together and
what
happens.
Was there an inspiration, a model that inspired you for what you're doing here? I was at Shack 15 in San Francisco a few months ago, which feels similar to what you're trying to accomplish and what you're doing here. But was that or were there other models that inspired you?
Yeah, Shack 15, I think, is exactly what inspired me. And I've been in a number of co-working spaces. Like Chicago has one of these like public-private type of initiatives as well.
Focused on tech.
Focus on tech.
Yeah.
Most of them are not focused on AI specifically. And I guess you could argue, AI and tech are pretty interchangeable at this point.
Or the specificity of AI within the tech community is what makes this somewhat unique.
Yes. I think for us, Shack 15, I think had the right vibe that we wanted to replicate. Like it's a place that's beautiful, it's fun, it's really easy to pop in and out. It's very convenient from a location perspective. So when we were thinking about AI House and a venue, right before we found Pier 70, we really wanted some counterintuitive things. Like we wanted first floor access. We didn't want elevators because elevators add friction, right, to people just dropping by and taking meetings. We really wanted event space because we saw a gap in Seattle for larger events. Like if you have 50 people, like plenty of places for you to hold an event. Once you cross 150, 200 people, very few places. So we wanted that type of capacity for larger events as well as smaller events. And then I think we wanted a certain vibe, right, that maybe is a little bit different from Shack 15. Shack 15 is a little bit elevated, right? Like yoga sessions and like cocktail making. We wanted a little bit more down to earth, a little bit more like geeky, technical. So I think we really lucked out in finding Pier 70 for AI House.
This feels very Seattle. You got a view of the cranes at the port and hanging over the water, and
we hit all the highlights of like downtown stadium, Rainier on a nice day. You can see the Space Needle on the other side, the mountains. So
what was here right before? I know way back when it was
it was a law firm.
It was a law firm, that's right. Was it Graham and Dunn? Is that who was here?
I'm pretty sure, yes.
That's right. Yeah.
They had moved out already. We actually looked at the space when it was under the previous owner, and it needed definitely some work. We're really happy with how it all came together.
So what happens here, and what's sort of your business model? I know you referenced the state of Washington, I think through the Commerce Department, right?
Yes.
Made a big investment to help cover the cost on the space and the lease and some
Senator Jon really led that initiative. Yes. So we got investment
that's helpful,
from both
I imagine.
sides.
To help cover the space, but sort of how does the business model for this work, and what all is happening here? I think people sort of generally understand maybe the idea of incubator space, but maybe explain more of what that means specific to AI House.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a lot of maybe confusion between AI2 Incubator and AI House.
Which started within the Allen Institute.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. So AI2 Incubator was born from the Allen Institute for AI. We used to be part of the same entity. Now we're an independent entity. AI2 itself is a 501c3 nonprofit that does research in AI. We are a for-profit incubator and VC fund. We make $500,000 very, very early stage investments in AI founders and startups. So our model has not changed. AI2 Incubator continues to make investments, support our founders through their seed round. AI House itself is, I would say, not a business, and it's not meant to be a profit-making business at all. It really came about because I saw a need for a physical space where we could have this concentration of founder talent, especially with AI in Seattle. Some of it probably is my background, starting my first company in SF. I think in SF, like my analogy is you can throw a rock and hit a founder, right? Probably. And in Seattle, that's not the case. Like you can throw a rock and hit, someone who works in tech, but they're probably at Microsoft or Amazon. Founders really need that concentration, right? Because being a founder is a little bit crazy. Like you are a little bit crazy to think that you can start a company and change the world. So we really want to concentrate real founders working hard technical problems in AI here, so that, if you run into those times where you're feeling crazy or something really bad happens, or, anything that can happen, there's other people around you that maybe have gone through that or going through that, or at least like understand, that this journey with all its ups and downs is worth it.
You're creating community.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's somewhat, I don't know if ironic is the right word, but maybe ironic that coming out of COVID when we were sort of told, oh, we don't need to be together anymore and people can work remotely and do everything online and virtually, that you're investing in a physical space to bring people together. And in the tech world too, where there's still plenty of people that are working apart from one another, but you see the value of physical space to help birth companies and ideas and help people grow.
It is ironic with AI, right? Because there's so many arguments about AI replacing people. I think it's a nuanced answer here, right? I think COVID has shown that not everything that we did in person was absolutely necessary, right? Having, FaceTime every single second and like oversight over every single, employee in your team. But my personal experience running a company through COVID is the more iterations and the more early stage you are as a startup, right? The more that you're trying to learn things that it's not a straight line, that's when the in-person element is really helpful. So if you're talking about really early stage founders, you are hopefully learning something new that shifts your thinking every day. And trying to do that remotely, it slows you down, right? And we want our founders and all founders in Seattle to have the best chance at success.
And I imagine on the other side of the table, as a fund, you want to sort of look folks in the eye, get to know them. Who are they? What's their idea? What's their commitment to that idea and to what they're trying to create? And doing that virtually is
absolutely, yeah,
not as high quality of a interaction and experience.
Yeah. And, we're an incubator, so we're halfway in between, right?
Yeah.
I spend a lot of my time like working side by side with our founders. But yes, I think the number one advice I give to our founders is if you're fundraising, make the trip, right? Go out, right? Meet people here in person in Seattle, or if you're, meeting Bay Area or New York investors, like fly out and meet people in person. If you are a really good founder, your 360 degree, right, review of you is very high quality, right? You have nothing to hide, and people will be able to see your caliber even better if you're in person. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of having that in person element.
I saw you on a panel not too long ago, and that's where we connected and decided to do this. So thanks for agreeing to do it. And that panel was largely focused on sort of AI in Seattle and how it, and the startup space and how it sort of stacks up and compares to some other markets, whether it's the Bay Area, New York, or others. How do you summarize kind of how we sit today in the broader Seattle region, to be inclusive of the East Side and the talent pool and great companies there relative to the Bay Area and some of the other powerhouses within the U.S. and the world?
Definitely. I think it may be surprising for people to know Seattle is the number 2 location when it comes to AI talent, right? And you can measure it in a number of ways, right? Number of AI jobs per capita, right? Job listings. We just have a lot of technical talent when it comes to AI. We are only second to, I think, San Jose, not even San Francisco. We have more AI concentration of talent than San Francisco. But if you look at it from a startup lens, right, from a number of startups or amount of VC funding perspective, we are well below where we should be as a market. So the key question is why that difference, right? My thesis is I think, we have a lot of know-how around big company tech. We have startups are a completely different beast, right? And the jump from working at a large company, right, to being a founder is pretty massive. In other markets, there's more intermediate startups like Series A, Series B, so that you can kind of work your way down and it's not quite as dramatic of a transition. Here, it's harder to do that. So I do think that's a reason why having an incubator or having more of this type of ecosystem is pretty important in Seattle.
To help catalyze and prod and lift up.
And even just the knowledge, right? The knowledge of like what am I supposed to do as a founder? How do you raise money? What should I look for in a co-founder? What should I look for in an early stage, right, founding engineer? All of that is kind of in the air. Like you ambiently absorb it if you're in San Francisco because everyone is talking about it. Here, you need to work your way to that knowledge. And you have a million things to do as a founder, right? And some of this stuff you don't even know you have to learn. So how do you learn that? So that's the concept behind AI House is to have that concentration. Everyone's talking about it. It's normalized, and you're ambiently absorbing really high quality information.
And to pick up on what you said just a little earlier, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like your point of view around kind of the differences in the startup community here into the Bay Area is, in some ways, the big companies that have been here, whether it's Microsoft or Amazon, because they've been such great places to work. It's maybe limited people going into the startup world because they've got these great options to go work for these great employers and have a lot of job security and stock options, and they're well known. And is that?
I'll say even beyond that, right? In the Bay Area, they also have great companies, right? Apple and Google. But it's a cultural difference. Like in the Bay Area, no one is proud to be working at a big company, right? They're all always defensive. Like they're like, oh, I'm just at Google for a couple of years post-acquisition. Like I'm still I can still do it, right?
I don't take the shuttles or eat the free food, right?
Exactly, yeah. Don't get too comfortable, right? The coolest thing to be—
Don't do my dry cleaning.
Yeah. No, the best thing that you can be is to be a founder in the Bay Area, like hands down. And then here, when I came, it was pretty surprising to me that there was so much pride in working a big tech company, right? That is just a very different culture.
That's very interesting.
And it's not like we can change the culture completely. And I don't think everyone is cut out to be a founder, right? But I do think we should celebrate founders a bit more. And again, the concentration, right, of celebration kind of, you can't change culture all at once, but you can change it in certain communities and in certain spaces.
What led you to found your first company? This was the Gym app.
Gympact, yep.
Which, as I understand it, sort of helps people with personalized training routines around specific sports. You describe it.
It's actually financial incentives for exercise.
For exercise.
So we were the app that charged you for not exercising and paid you if you did exercise, like very small amounts of money, like 25 cents, right? The point was exercise. The incentives were to motivate and create structure for people that have trouble exercising. So I started Gympact right after graduating from Harvard. I actually studied economics.
So you started on the East Coast, or when you?
Yes, I started in Boston. Senior year, I wrote a paper around negative financial incentives being, way more motivating actually and powerful than positive financial incentives, and made it into an app. So that was my initial inspiration. I think I was very lucky to be an undergrad that fell in with a group of other students that all became founders and VCs. I grew up in Indiana. My parents are landscape architects, right? Immigrant family. I had no clue that you could be a founder, that this is something that people do, that all these companies out there are started by, people just like me and you. And I think Harvard and that particular group at Harvard opened up my eyes. I ended up doing an internship with Flybridge, a local VC in Boston. I ended up being president of the entrepreneurship forum at Harvard, and really went in deep with this space. But I don't think I would have started my first company if I hadn't gotten that introduction.
That community was important to you.
Yes.
So when you wrote that paper, you didn't write it with a thought of, I'm going to create a company out of this, until it was complete and you started to make some connections and relationships with people that were sort of in the space of founding companies and in the VC space?
Definitely. Yeah, I wrote that because I was just interested. I was like, oh, how fascinating that, paying money is more motivating than getting money, right? And it's, I think for every good company, there is a seed of something interesting and counterintuitive. And then it took me a lot of, mistakes to get to Gympact, the app itself. I'll spare you the details, but we did these crazy experiments with physical gyms. We thought about starting a physical gym potentially with some incentive model. We got kicked out of physical gyms because they, didn't want us to actually get people to exercise that much. So yeah, lots of mistakes along the way.
And then you sold it, right?
Yes. Gympact, I did not. My second company, Loftian, was sold to Fly Homes here in Seattle.
Gotcha.
Yep. Gympact, actually, we got to profitability within a year of launch, which was quite unique as a fitness app because we actually had a financial model behind, right? We were transacting, we got up to about 3 million users, and we were able to take a cut in terms of the financial transactions.
We'll pause.
Sorry.
Are you picking that up? You're good? Okay. What do you remember your first pitch for?
First pitch ever
for investment in Gympact?
Oh, for Gympact.
And how you approached it?
Oh man, my first pitch ever. Gympact was very strange. I was 22 when I started the company. Didn't know anything. Had never worked for anyone. Actually, this is probably my first real job. I've always just run my own companies. I think my first pitch ever is probably we got rejected from YC and Techstars initially. We ended up actually doing Techstars, but the very first incubator that took us was this crazy program called Startup Chile. And the government of Chile gave us $40,000 to move to Chile and develop our app there. And we were 22, and we're like, sure, why not? So we went to Chile.
Was it like a health initiative for them? Was that their interest around like public health?
It was a pretty cool endeavor by the government to bring 100 founders from around the world, right? And the idea is
more of an economic development play.
Exactly. Yeah, we would spend the money in Chile, right? They give us 40,000, we put it back into the economy, and suddenly you have 100 founders in the ecosystem because Chile did not have a strong tech or startup background. So we
did you move to Chile?
Yeah, the three of us built Gympact in Chile because you can develop the app anywhere, right? So I designed the first app.
Had you ever been there?
No, we had no clue. We didn't know there was like pollution. We didn't know that. I had taken high school Spanish. No one else on my team spoke Spanish. There's a lot that we had to learn. I wouldn't say it necessarily accelerated us as a startup, but like 40,000 is a lot for a 22-year-old.
Was there a combo with your parents before all of that? What was that like when you said, I'm heading to Chile to build this app with some government money?
For better or worse, because we're an immigrant family, I've always been pretty headstrong and did a lot of things for my parents. Like I've done my parents' taxes since I was like 16 or something.
So you called them once you got to Chile and said, I'm in Chile.
No, they trusted me.
Yeah.
I also, I think I'm a pretty responsible person. I take risks, but calculated risks. I had gotten into the HBS, Harvard Business School 2+2 program. So I had 2 years to do whatever I wanted with a guaranteed spot at business school. So for my parents, they're like, well, if she completely fails, it's fine. She can hop back on.
Pretty good cushion.
Yeah.
And then your second company, Loftium, in the Airbnb home rental space. How did that idea come to you?
Yeah, so I took a year-long sabbatical between Gympact and Loftium and actually traveled myself, went all over different cities in the US and the world. And I actually stayed with a bunch of different Airbnb hosts that were not allowed to host. So we were, as the guests, like crawling under bushes and pretending to be people's friends, right, to stay at these Airbnbs.
Did they tell you this after you booked it, or?
Oh yeah, it's not on the listing at all. So
they're like, by the way, here's what you.
Yeah, they're like, oh, by the way, you have to be our friend, or like, oh, you're our cousin, and like, but we would have conversations with the host around like, why are people hosting? And a lot of times, people were saving up for, especially like to buy their first home, right? It's really lucrative to Airbnb versus doing some of the other gig economy things like driving for Uber because you're utilizing the real estate as well as your own time. And that was the seed of an idea for Loftium was my counterintuitive stance is that there's a lot of people that want to host. Actually, it's not that we're missing hosts. It's that we're missing real estate that allows those people to be able to host, right? In order to host, even, today, right, you have to own real estate because if you own the real estate, you get to dictate if you're allowed to host. If you're renting, most landlords don't allow you to host. So how do you solve that chicken or the egg problem for all these renters to tap into this amazing income source that then allows them to have a down payment to own a home?
Somebody that had a long-term lease on a place
exactly.
but might not be using it all the time to create income.
Well, so we actually created a specific program called Host to Own, where there are homes that you can rent. And as a part of your lease, you can actually host a part of it as a separate guest suite. So that suite generates income for you. It saves up your down payment. It creates even like an income history for you so that after 3 years, you should have the down payment, right, and the income history to be able to own the home outright. And that was the whole concept for Loftium.
And that came to you because of your own experience in dealing with some hosts that weren't legitimate hosts.
Yeah.
And you saw a problem to solve.
Yeah, the chicken or the egg, right? Like, how do we help these hosts, right, actually have a legitimate way to channel their energies and be able to be homeowners?
And then Fly Homes?
Fly Homes,
yeah.
They're a Seattle real estate company.
Yeah.
They ended up acquiring us in early 2023. So the Loftium team went over to Fly Homes, and I stayed for a bit before joining AI2 Incubator.
And if I remember right, Loftium was headquartered right in the middle of downtown. Your office was
we were at
Third and Pine, right?
Third and Pine,
right.
across from the McDonald's.
And you, pretty early coming out of the pandemic, were a big proponent of back to the office in person. I remember having this conversation with you. I don't know when it was, like 2022 or somewhere around there.
It was even earlier. I think we were, we all went remote in 2020. And I think we came back in person June of 2021, which was quite early. As soon as everyone was vaccinated, we came in.
Everybody was in.
Yeah. Yep, everyone came back. And during the pandemic, I had a discussion with my team around, should we hire remotely, right? Do we want to even come back in person? And for me, it was very clear that we had so many things to figure out still, even though at that point we had raised a Series A, right? Loftium raised about $30 million of venture capital, but the pandemic changed up a lot of things in our space.
Yeah, in your industry.
Yep. And it was the type of business that we couldn't just, run a straight line. So for me, it was very important that we continue to be there in person.
And where do you see, since we're on this topic, where do you see this going in the future with remote work, hybrid work, in person? Do you think in downtown, we've seen over the last, 2 years a slow but sort of steady increase in the number of people back in the office. And do you think we kind of continue to head in that direction of people sort of getting reacquainted with the value of in-person work? Or do you think remote work, virtual work for a significant portion of the workforce and sort of the work week will be a fixture forever?
Yeah, I think it depends on the industry. And I think it's surprising to people, right? Like, there are certain industries we would have never imagined could continue to be fully remote, like therapists, right? Or like coaches, right? Executive coaches, like that can, like, ironically or interestingly, can be done completely remotely. But then there's other roles I think you see are coming full-time back in person, including some tech roles. Definitely most of our startups here are here in person, often 5 days a week. But then I do think it depends, right? If you have a role that is more either straightforward, maybe one-to-one, right? I think that can be fully remote. We see a lot of hybrid as well, right? Maybe 3 days a week in the office and then like a couple of heads down days. I actually prefer to work that way, especially if I have remote calls, right? There's no reason to come into an office just to sit in front of Zoom and take calls.
Right.
So I hope that there's more trust in people being able to figure out what works best for them. But I think in person at some point, right, is necessary for everyone. Maybe, for example, our AI House experts, a lot of them love having badge access to AI House. They are mostly work from home. Maybe they'll come in like once or twice a month, but those days of heads up, right, in-person interaction, maybe they're panelists on an event as well, meeting with some of our founders and each other. Like that's pretty important for people to stay sane.
They've got a touchdown spot and a place to connect with. And
Yes. Yeah. And it's the connections, it's the unexpected information, right? The unknown unknowns out there in the world. I think remote work is very good at, if you know what you're doing, you can do it faster, right? But the inspiration, right?
The
The side
serendipity.
paths, the serendipity that happens, like that often, like if you're efficiently running in the wrong direction, you're not going to get there any faster, right? So some of these like ambient, right, learnings can help guide and navigate, avoid those, wrong paths, and like ultimately can help you run faster.
So I want to just turn our conversation back to this space just to help people understand like what is happening here and how do people get connected to it. So you've got some co-working space.
Yes.
You're doing events here. What else is happening in this space and sort of who's it for and how do those folks get connected?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have the 3 components. So events, co-working, and then experts. And if you go to the AI2Incubator.com website, there's an AI health section where you can look into each of these areas, apply to be an expert, see our full events list, right? Get contact information to rent a desk if you want to here. So yeah, all of that is available on the website. I would say probably the easiest way to get access to AI House is to look at our events calendar. It's a Luma calendar, is Luma/AI House. And it has all of our events. Like we're showing it right up on the wall there. You can scan a QR code.
And
if
you
you're
have to
in this
be
space.
a member? You don't have a membership model. So it's sort of your doors are open.
Right. Yeah. This is a public-private partnership, right? We're not trying to make money off of this. It's really, we're trying to create a community hub for, like, if you're thinking AI in Seattle, you'll think AI House, and you can come join us in one of our events. They're not all public, but there's a good number that are. You can come in and start connecting with other like-minded people.
And I saw recently you did an event around female founders and had a pretty impressive turnout here in the space.
Yeah, I was so pleasantly delighted, also a little bit surprised. I think when I was a founder, I've always been a female CEO and founder. I definitely did not know this many female founders were here in Seattle. And I think that has probably improved a bit in the last few years. But also, I think maybe we were always here and we just didn't have an opportunity.
So you were surprised by the number of
together.
folks who showed up.
The number and also the caliber, right? These are real founders, like VC backed, working hard technical problems in like robotics and construction, right? Like really, really legitimate, high caliber founders.
What are the types of companies, or a couple of examples of the companies that are coming through this space that are engaged on the venture side, and what is it they do? Like, are there a couple of examples just to give us a sense of like kind of who you're working with in this space?
Absolutely. So I think that there's so many people that come through now with the events, but for AI2 Incubator, a lot of the companies in this space are anchored by AI2 Incubator. So we've made an investment in these companies. For the past year and a half, we've really focused on vertical application layer AI, which sometimes surprises people given the roots with AI2. But it's a place that we think startups can deliver outsized value and really get close to the customer and solve that last mile problem of, taking a foundation model or a generic model and making it applicable to like mortgage or manufacturing or compliance. So those are some of the examples, right? I guess a local example, Friday Harbor is a mortgage underwriting company that just graduated from the incubator. They just raised a $6 million seed round. And they are essentially able to pre-underwrite a lot of mortgage loans using AI and take all the borrower documentation, right, match it against the guidelines. The AI is actually really, really good at this. But there's always a human in the loop still in terms of the underwriter. It's just that the loan files now are so much better than, without the AI.
An area where efficiency is desperately needed.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. We also have we have KCN, which is an immigration AI company. We actually use them ourselves for our founders coming through the incubator. They're able to use AI to really streamline the timeline to get a visa, the set of documents, right, for a visa from 6 to 9 months down to maybe a week or two. So, efficiency gains, document sorting applied towards a vertical is something that we're very excited by.
When you look ahead to next year at this time, your 1-year anniversary of having AI House open, what do you hope for?
I hope that when people think about AI in Seattle, AI House will pop into their minds. My other hope is that most people working in AI in Seattle will have come through our doors at some point in the last year, whether that's for an event or to take a meeting or, something, right? We really want to have a diverse array of events and opportunities for everyone.
We have a couple of standard questions to close out with, Yifan. One is, what was your first job that you paid federal taxes for?
My first job that I paid taxes for was at Einstein Bagels in Carmel, Indiana.
Yeah.
And I was so inexperienced. I think it was right before my 16th birthday, so I'm not even sure whether this is allowed. But I wasn't allowed to touch the bagels. I could only stock the schmear, the cream cheese.
Was that like an Indiana regulation? Why the bagels not?
I have no
not
clue.
The bagels, but
maybe
the
they just didn't trust me. I hadn't, leveled up to the bagels yet.
But you saved yourself from cuts and if you weren't cutting bagels.
Probably. Yeah. I cleaned the bathrooms also. So, that wasn't great.
This was a summer gig?
Yeah, summer job.
Yeah. And then our final question is, what's your perfect Saturday in Seattle or the Seattle area?
Yeah. I live in West Seattle now, so I love Alki Beach. Perfect Saturday is, taking a run or a bike ride with my daughter over to Alki and getting coffee and mini donuts and, being on the beach.
Love it. And we're looking at that beach from right where we sat.
I got to stare at my house and then my house stare at my office.
Well, thank you for making time for this and congrats for what you've created. And thanks for doing it downtown. You're creating community within a community here and bringing people together. And that's what, of course, downtowns are about. So it's great to get through these doors and learn a little bit more about what you're up to here. And great for our city and for the folks in the space today and for those that are thinking of AI or starting something and founding something. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Yifan. Thanks to her for making time to come on Seattle City Makers, and congrats for what she's accomplished in opening up the AI House. Super terrific space and community that she has built down there. And I know a day or two after we chatted in the space, it was buzzing with a ton of people for one of the events that they had on their schedule. So she's just getting a ton of people through there and connected, and it's great for the AI community in Seattle to have a hub just like what she's created. Well, I want to close out with a recommendation of something to check out in downtown Seattle, and we've spoken about and highlighted the Populous Hotel and their rooftop bar and restaurant before, but now that it's finally open and I finally got there, I do have to mention it one more time. What an incredible spot down in Pioneer Square at the corner of First and King. The Populous Hotel now open, and one of, I think, the nicest rooftop bars and restaurants, Fern, in downtown Seattle. A spectacular view back to the downtown skyline. Just great service, great food and drink. The new hot spot in downtown. So go check out Fern at the Populous Hotel if you've not been there just yet. I know lots of people are getting through and rave reviews for what the folks at Urban Villages have done in transforming the former Westland office building into a beautiful new boutique hotel. Well, thanks again for joining us on this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association with support from James Cito and production by Thread Theory.